My deeply arrogant stepmother stood in the center of my ailing father's sprawling foyer, pointed a manicured finger directly at my heavily stained work boots, and coldly sneered, "You are nothing but a filthy, uneducated wood chipper. Break open that painted shut attic door by noon for free, or I will ensure your father permanently cuts you out of the estate and leaves you to rot in the gutters." She delivered this deeply calculated, life-altering ultimatum with a condescending, predatory smirk, perfectly playing the part of the undisputed family matriarch. She was wearing a highly specific, custom-tailored emerald green dress, looking down her nose as she demanded I quietly provide free manual labor. She treated me less like her actual stepson, and entirely like a pathetic indentured servant who should be incredibly grateful just to breathe the conditioned air inside my own childhood home. The entire sprawling living room immediately descended into a suffocating, heavy silence. My father, heavily medicated and completely manipulated by her relentless psychological conditioning, simply stared down at the expensive mahogany floorboards, entirely refusing to defend his own flesh and blood. Her inner circle of wealthy parasitic socialites, who had invaded my home to sip imported tea, simply laughed into their delicate porcelain cups, completely participating in my public humiliation. I was the absolute pariah of my own bloodline, the solitary blue-collar worker, surrounded by a tight circle of self-appointed social elites, who firmly believed my calloused hands equated to a severe lack of intelligence. I felt entirely isolated, drowning in a manufactured social dynamic, where my professional dignity was systematically erased. I knew with absolute certainty that if I raised my voice to defend my rightful place in that family, I would instantly be labeled as an unstable, jealous failure, attacking the supposedly generous woman, keeping my father. I did not argue with her calculated insult. I simply picked up my heavy steel pry bar, gave her a hollow, obedient nod, and completely disappeared into the stifling upper hallway to handle the demolition. What my stepmother completely failed to realize, what none of my parasitic family knew, because they were entirely too blinded by their own arrogance to ever ask about my actual career, was that I had not been a standard residential carpenter for over a decade. Over the last 8 years, I had quietly secured elite, highly specialized federal credentials. I became a licensed forensic behavioral auditor and a master probate investigator, heavily contracted by high-net-worth legal firms and medical boards to evaluate the psychological competency of hostile estate executors. I was the invisible scalpel, slicing through the elaborate physical lies of deeply disturbed predators. While my stepmother was busy manipulating my father's fragile estate and bragging at country clubs, I had become an absolute master of forensic psychiatric reconstruction, learning exactly how severe mental anomalies manifest within the hidden architecture of residential homes. The trap snapped violently shut the exact moment I forced my heavy pry bar deep into the thick layers of lead paint sealing the attic door. The heavy wood groaned and violently splintered open, releasing a wave of stale, suffocating air. Sweeping my tactical flashlight across the pitch-black space, the horrifying, deeply psychotic reality instantly clicked in my brain. The attic was not a dusty storage space. Arranged in a massive, terrifying circle around a Victorian dining table were 20 incredibly lifelike mannequins set up for an elaborate, silent tea party. But it was their clothing that made my blood run entirely cold. Every single mannequin was meticulously dressed in the exact same custom-tailored emerald green dress, identical designer heels, and matching pearl necklace my stepmother was wearing downstairs that very moment. It was a staggering, horrifying display of severe, escalating narcissistic psychosis, a textbook psychiatric shrine proving she was completely dangerously unhinged. I rapidly documented the terrifying scene with my encrypted diagnostic tablet, marched directly downstairs, and dropped the device onto the antique coffee table right next to the elite estate lawyers waiting to finalize her new will. Her arrogant, triumphant smile instantly vanished. I did not yell. I simply slid my tablet across the glass, displaying the high-definition footage alongside an immediate, legally binding psychiatric injunction I had just filed using my professional medical credentials. The injunction mandated an involuntary medical hold and permanently stripped her of all medical and financial power of attorney over my father. All the color instantly drained from her face, leaving her pale, stuttering, and physically shaking as she realized her pristine, impenetrable empire had just been entirely dismantled by the uneducated wood chipper she had humiliated an hour ago. I did not wait around to listen to her frantic, delusional excuses, nor did I watch her completely shatter as the legal team backed away in absolute horror. I calmly packed up my specialized diagnostic gear, walked out the massive oak doors without looking back, and left her standing completely alone in the rapidly collapsing ruins of her own psychotic deception. By the time I reached my work truck, the deafening sirens of the county psychiatric transport unit were already echoing down the private driveway. By the end of the week, she was permanently committed to a secure facility, and my father's estate was legally restored to my absolute control. Watching her fake, elite kingdom crumble into dust under the heavy weight of the absolute truth was incredibly satisfying. But I have to ask you, was I the jerk for triggering a massive medical raid without giving my father any prior warning, or did she completely deserve to be locked away? Drop your verdict in the comments.